Capstone is a project that everybody in my school, my high school, Berlin High, we do to graduate. A big project, and to go into one subject to present to your school. And so I chose the historicity of the Bible. So let me just present to you how I presented to my school this subject. So hello, my name is Marino, and the capstone that I chose to do for my senior capstone project is the historicity of the Bible, or in other words, how historically reliable and accurate is the Bible. And today we will be looking specifically at the second portion of the Bible, the New Testament. Now, senior capstone, you can go back. Senior capstone is a project that has, is a subject that has impacted us throughout our high school career. So it was easy for me to choose a subject relating to how Jesus changed my life. But I wanted to solidify the truth in which I base all reality and rationale for existence. I was hungry for answers that all of us truly desire to know. Why am I here? What really matters? And does my life have any value and purpose? And if it does, what gives it that value and purpose? But finding these answers in the Bible came with its downside. See, there's a certain stigma relating to Christianity that you'll have to throw out your brain to believe in the Bible, a mere religious book composed of myths. But I wasn't willing to fall into this false narrative. I needed to be convinced that the book that changed me and now governs my life is true beyond reproach, that what I believe in is not in vain. In this short time that we have together, I'm going to attempt to prove to you that the New Testament, that Jesus really did raise from the dead, and that the New Testament is not only historically reliable, but it is the most historically reliable book of ancient history. Now, for my essential question, which is the next slide, is what evidence is there to support the historical reliability of the New Testament? How should we view the New Testament? Can we ever really view it as a historical document? And how well does it match up with the scrutiny of other valid ancient documents that we trust? See, I needed to know that the words that I read in my New Testament are not fake. They're not mythology. They're not meaningless. But that every word in that book is credited as truth. Words that I would lay my life down for. Now, to start this, we will be doing a test that every ancient document goes through, a bibliographical test. This is a test of textual transmission. In other words, how well or how accurate are the words that we have of ancient documents. Let's say the words of Aristotle or Plato. They wrote down words at a certain time period, and we have a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of what they have. So how well were they transmitted? How accurate were they transmitted to us? And we do this by looking at manuscripts. Manuscripts are just handwritten documents. See, they didn't have typewriters, and they probably didn't have phones to preserve their writings. So they had to handwrite word for word to keep the writings that they wrote down. And when examining a bibliographical test, there's two parts to it. How many manuscripts are there? This shows if there's more manuscripts, the more accurate it would be. The more copies we have, that shows the more accuracy the words are in that document. And the second part is the time gap between when it was originally written and when the manuscript and the extant copies, meaning the existing copies that we have now. Obviously, a bigger time gap would show less accuracy. So to look at the first part, we have how many manuscripts? The New Testament has 25,000 manuscripts, or a little bit over 25,000 manuscripts, compared to documents such as Pliny the Elder and Pliny the Younger, Josephus, Caesar having 250 manuscripts. These are documents that we trust, only having 250 manuscripts, while the New Testament has 25,000 Now, this is what the biblical scholar Bruce Metzger says about this. The works of several ancient authors are preserved to us by the thinnest possible thread of transmission. In contrast, the textual critic of the New Testament is embarrassed by the wealth of his material. You see, the amount of manuscripts that attest to the New Testament, it's so embarrassing to all the other ancient documents that we have. Now, if we go to the second test, the time gap, and we see documents such as Plato and Caesar. These are stuff that I learned in school. These are documents that we know all about Caesar, all about Plato. What do we know about these people? They have time gaps of 1,300 years, of 1,000 years, while the New Testament has fragments of only 50 years, with the full Bible being, for the full New Testament having 225 years. This is a crazy short amount of time, of a time gap, compared to Caesar having 1,000 years, or Plato having 1,300 years. And this is what the renowned apologist Ravi Zachariah, this is another graph that shows the time gap, but this is what a quote from a renowned apologist Ravi Zachariah says: in the real terms, the New Testament is easily the best attested ancient writing in terms of sheer number of documents. The time span between the events in the document and the variety of documents available to sustain or contradict it. There is nothing in ancient manuscript evidence to match such textual availability and integrity. So if you do not trust the words that are in the New Testament, if you say, well, we can't really know if they were really written in a certain time period or if they're really historically accurate that these people wrote them, well, this is what I believe it was. This is what a maverick scholar, 11 degrees, John Warwick Montgomery, he says, to be skeptical of the resultant text of the New Testament book is to allow all of classical antiquity to slip into obscurity, for no documents of the ancient period are as well attested bibliographically as the New Testament. So if you're skeptical of the words that are in the New Testament, that means you can't trust any other document of ancient history. Forget all the history you know about ancient Rome or ancient Greece. You will know nothing about that. You can't trust any of that information if you don't trust the words that are in the New Testament. But now let's get to the heart of Christianity. What makes Christianity Christianity? The life of Jesus. And I want to make a statement that Jesus lived on this earth, was crucified. He claimed to be the Son of God and was crucified. And after 3 days of being dead, he rose from the dead. But let's start with the first step. Did Jesus really exist? And people like to propagate this Jesus is just a mythical legend. He never really existed. It's a popular thing in social media to be like, you're crazy if you actually think Jesus was a real person in real time. But this is what F.F. Bruce, a renowned biblical scholar, he said, some writers may toy with the fancy of a Christ myth, but they do not do so on the grounds of historical evidence. The historicity of Christ is as axiomatic for an unbiased historian as the historicity of Julius Caesar. It is not historians who propagate the Christ myth theories. You see, if you say, well, Jesus really never existed, that is one of the most ridiculous things you ever said, because it is not historically accurate to say such a thing as that. And there's not just biographies of Jesus's life. 4 biographies of Jesus' life we have. And they're not just regular biographies. Biographies in itself in the ancient world were very rare, but we have 4 of one person. In comparison, we have Tiberius, who was the emperor of the time of Jesus' life, the most important and powerful person, the emperor of Rome, Tiberius. he has 0 biographies. In comparison to Jesus having 4 biographies, not just biographies, but eyewitness biographies, people who interacted with Jesus, people who walked with Jesus, people who talked with Jesus, wrote down what they saw him do. And we have 4 of them. But it's not just 4 biographies. You say people like to discredit the New Testament biographies as bad attestation because they're biased, which I would argue that they are good attestation towards Jesus' life. Let's look at secular evidence for Jesus' life. And this is emperors and governors and historians who wrote about Jesus and the movement he started, all not even 100 years after his death. This is a crazy amount of people who attested to Jesus' life. Many who were not even, these are the opposite of bias accounts for Jesus, because they were actually anti-Christian. They talked about persecuting and killing the Christians and Jesus and the movement he started. But, and even, this is what Edwin Yamaki, a biblical scholar, said, even if we did not have the New Testament, we would be able to conclude from such a non-Christian writings as Josephus, the Talmud, Tacitus, and Pliny the Younger, that Jesus was a Jewish leader. Many believed he performed healings and exorcism. He was rejected by the Jewish leaders, crucified under Pontius Pilate, the reign of Tiberius. Despite that, his followers who believed that he was still alive spread beyond Palestine, so that there were multitudes of them in Rome by AD 64, and all kinds of people from the cities and countryside, and women, slave and free, worshiped him as God by the beginning of the 2nd century. We would know all this information about Jesus, all of this, even if we didn't have a Bible completely. All from secular evidence, we would know this about Jesus's life. But let's get to the one moment that really changed all of history, the resurrection of Jesus. You see, everything that I believe in hinges on this one moment of time. Even Paul says it in 1 Corinthians 15:14. If Christ is not risen, your preaching is empty. Your faith is also empty. So everything hinges on this one moment of time. Did it really happen? And a secular evidence, Tiberius, actually says Jesus was crucified under Pontius Pilate, the reign of Tiberius. So it is not just the Bible that says Jesus was crucified under Pontius Pilate. Tacitus also states and he's a respected historian of ancient Rome. And we know that people were crucified by the Romans. And we know they were professional killers. They knew how to kill people. They knew how to murder them. They knew how to perform a capital punishment. So the myth or the theory that Jesus never really died is completely ridiculous, because we know that he was crucified. And when you are crucified, they make sure you're dead. They don't make mistakes with that. So we know Jesus died. And we know that hundreds of people changed everything they believed in, right? Now, the resurrection is seen as a legend, but the Jews never expected Jesus to be resurrected. And legends aren't made in 50 days. The theory that this is just a legend is a ridiculous theory. Legends aren't made in a couple weeks. They're made over hundreds of years. They're made over multiple authors just making up a bunch of stuff. This is not what happened historically around the time of Jesus' resurrection. It was in 50 days that they already had a church. And the fact is that even there's evidence for hundreds of people completely changing everything they believed in moments, creating a church within weeks of his death, and accounts of these believers dying for what they saw. People don't just die for what they see in moments of weeks from a legend they never heard of. They had to see something that changed everything they believed as a hardcore monotheistic person. In conclusion, the tomb of Jesus remains empty, and I can be assured that the New Testament passes the scrutiny of scholars with flying colors. So I can be confident that concerning the Jesus that changed my life, history is on my side. Thank you. Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about it. It was better than I ever expected it to be. It was like, I was obviously, I did this like a week and a half ago. I was much more like fluent in how I was speaking, but they were like shocked. I even had, well, I guess people heard of my capstone, certain teachers, and they actually came to watch it because they never heard of a capstone so interesting. They never, they've been doing this for like 10 years, and the vice principal came up to me and she's like, I've been doing capstones since, this started in the school, and I've never had a topic as interesting as yours. And she came to see my capstone. And so I had another teacher, an extra, like a bunch of teachers came to see my capstone. So it was really an amazing moment. And after I did this, they were all shocked. They were all, like dumbfounded by all the information. They said like, wow, like I think a couple people were like, wow, my head is spinning from all the information you gave me. And even this kid, my friend who was in there, he said, I've been going to church my whole life, and nobody ever presented the gospel in the way you did, as clearly and as confident and in such an amazing way as you did. And he even began to say, I don't even think he realized what he was saying, but he's like, this was so amazing. You can have such great success if you talk about this with other people. I don't know what you plan. He said, I don't know what you plan to do for a career, but if you do this, you will have an amazing, successful career. And it was just, it was like, wow. I'm like, wow, thank you. Like, and even like the people who examine, I passed this, and I passed with distinction. So every category I passed with distinction, and it was just the grace of God that really, it helped me so much to that I was able to just research and show that Jesus really did raise from the dead. And we had a booth in the afternoon, kind of like a science fair. We had like a booth that displays what we did, and it was like parents would come, and it was funny. I was like, I felt like a professor giving lectures, because like a line of people would be around me, and I would be like explaining, Jesus really did raise from the dead. And it was an amazing time, an amazing experience. And even my friends who had tables around me for their project, they were like, it's kind of boring over here, and I'm watching you just give lectures to other people. It's probably a good, it's better to have an interesting topic, I guess. So they were just funny, because it was just amazing how God drew people in to help me share the gospel with them. So it was great. It was amazing. Yeah.